The traditional way to introduce my guest would be to describe her as a former Prime Minister of Pakistan. But with Benazir Bhutto, you never think of her as being former anything. You never think of the past. So what I will say is that she's been Prime Minister of Pakistan twice already, and she's just 47. Do you think you'll be Prime Minister again?
I hope that I can be Prime Minister again if there are fresh elections in my country which are fair. So Pakistan is at a turning point in its own history. But we're very concerned that General Musharraf might manipulate the next election.
He was in Agra for this summit, at which he had a breakfast with all of us, Indian editors and media personalities, which he thoughtfully videotaped for a larger audience, at which he said that democracy in Pakistan has been a sham, and I am reassembling democracy, and I am the most popular person in Pakistan. Come and see for yourselves. When a man believes that, do you think he's really serious about allowing any of you to come back to power?
Well, he's told my party people that he doesn't want me to come back.
He said that in so many words.
He has said it in so many words. He said it publicly, that I will not permit her to return. He said it to my party in person, that I will not permit her to return, but the rest of you can all have power. Now, for us, democracy means that the people decide, not the general. So we are insisting that the people should be given the chance to decide who should lead them. And if General Musharraf thinks he's very popular, then maybe he should take off his uniform and contest the elections. But Pakistan's future lies in what its founder promised, not what General Musharraf promised. Muhammad Ali Jinnah said Pakistan would be a democracy, and I am loyal to Jinnah's dream.
People in India, and you must remember we are talking about people who only see Pakistan from the outside, we are given the impression that the Pakistani public was very disillusioned with the political structure. They felt politicians were very corrupt, and that though we would find the idea of a military dictator appalling, people in Pakistan said, never mind, whatever else he is, he's better than these corrupt politicians. Is there any truth to that?
Certainly there is a perception amongst a certain group of people that politicians are corrupt and generals are better than politicians. But that's only amongst a small section of the people. In fact, the generals consider the politicians corrupt, and we, the politicians, consider the generals corrupt. Now, every few years, the generals investigate us. But we've never had the opportunity to investigate the generals. So what we're saying is that if this is an issue...
I'm going to stop you there, because that's what you've said is very important. How corrupt, according to you, are the generals?
Well, we've heard stories of how during the Afghan jihad, suitcases of money would be flown in C-130s and handed over, and the children of the generals all became multimillionaires. From where did they get their money? I am being investigated for my ministers who awarded contracts after an open and transparent bid. But the general is giving lucrative contracts to people without a bid. So something is very wrong. We, generals and politicians, need to sit down and say, okay, corruption's bad, and everybody's going to be accountable, and we're going to say goodbye to the days when generals used corruption as a pretext to persecute politicians because they wanted to rule the country.
While being above any kind of scrutiny themselves.
While being above against any scrutiny. And talking of scrutiny, I love my country, and it pains me deeply when Pakistan suffers setback after setback. I will give you an example. In 1971, our country broke into two pieces. Right. The Bengalis were Pakistanis, but no general has got up and said, I am sorry, we committed genocide. And we, the Pakistani people, have been denied even the right to the inquiry report which investigated the fall of Dhaka, and this was done to protect the generals. Now in Kargil, so many of our young men lost their lives. There are stories that even their dead bodies were not taken back by us. I think there should be an investigation of the Kargil incident, how it happened, was it right, who was responsible about it. Just last month, a party worker of mine was picked up by two colonels, and he was tortured to death No action has been taken.
I want to take you back to two of the things you've said. One of them is the East Pakistan, later Bangladesh situation, where you said the word genocide was used. There was certainly a humiliating defeat. How come after that the Pakistani army, rather than being a pariah in the eyes of Pakistanis, now claims it's actually the only force there? Isn't there any shame in that?
Well, certainly my own father did so much to rehabilitate the image of the Pakistani army.
Well, your father got the POWs back.
90,000
That's
prisoners of war he brought back. And I remember Sheikh Mujib was threatening to try the army officers and sentence them. And my father saved them from war trials. And do you know how the generals paid us back? They arrested each one of my father's family, from the father to the mother, to the son, to the daughter, and tried each one of us. So I am
And
bringing...
ultimately, of course, they murdered your father.
They murdered my father. And till this date, there hasn't been an investigation of how a conspiracy was concocted to murder Pakistan's elected Prime Minister, which is why my party is now saying that we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so that all of us who are the victims, we can at least go before a commission and talk about the state-sponsored attempt to pervert the course of justice and subvert the will of the people of Pakistan. Our people deserve to know more.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned was Kargil, which is of interest to us as Indians. There is a story, and you can confirm this, that the plan was not new, that the generals had hatched something along those lines even when you were Prime Minister and that you had said no. Is that accurate?
Well, there were war games.
Yeah.
And as part of the war games, different scenarios would be built. And there was such a war game scenario.
There was such, it was presented to you.
Well, I will put it in this way. There was, I want to be careful about what I say
I understand
here.
that.
There was a war game scenario, and I put my foot down. I said, no, this is wrong. If anything like this happens, it will be a big setback for Pakistan, and we will be forced to withdraw. I want my countrymen to hold their head up high. I don't want them to feel the shame and humiliation. So I put my foot down. But later on, when it materialized, so many of our men died, and we were humiliated. We were ordered to unilaterally withdraw from the world community.
I want to ask you one more question about Kargil. This war game and all that you're talking about, did this predate General Musharraf?
No. General Musharraf was the person who presented the war plan to me.
Really?
Yes.
So he was planning that even then?
I don't think he was planning it. I don't think it was.
I know you're going to be careful, but what are you going to say?
I'm going to tell you that ever since we lost Siachen,
Yeah.
under General Zia's rule, and every time we have a general, we lose something or the other. Ever since we lost parts of the Siachen area under General Zia, I think there was an attempt to do something that could retrieve for us what had been lost. And it wasn't the first time I was given such a war game scenario. I was given it in my first term too. And I said, this is wrong. It's not workable. I want to see Pakistan which is at peace with its neighbors, a Pakistan that does not involve itself in conflicts.
And of course, they didn't like that.
Well, you must ask them. I don't think they did.
I'm going to ask you more about your relations with the army and with the IS.